optimized for video, and video is sought out more and more by consumers for entertainment, for helpful information, for inspiration. And actually, hold on, I think this, there we go. And so for us, it's thinking about video as part of that and making sure even when you're activating on a platform that historically was image-based, that you think about video. Video unlocks a ton of opportunity for you guys. And just taking a moment, why influencer? There was some joint research that we did with Geometry Global, which is a shopper marketing agency, a couple of years ago. And so it was back in 2017, but I think the data is still relevant, and the point is astonishing, or was astonishing at the time. You always thought, where do you turn to for product recommendations? The initial thought was family and friends. I used the same eye cream that my mother used when she was my age, or, trying to decide what brand is right for me. You might ask your friends what they buy. There was this shift that occurred a couple of years ago where social media content creators became that trusted source. They were more credible, more reliable, more relatable than your mom, than your friends, than brands themselves and retailers. And so what that means is that for brands that believe in influencer and find influencers that really embody their brand and entrust in them and collaborate on what that final outcome of content looks like, that is where the content can truly solve needs of customers. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't anyway, maybe it's not the case 100% right now, but you shouldn't be looking at influencers as just talking heads or vehicles to broadcast your message. You should think about them as part of your team and a content creator and someone that understands how to best integrate your product, your brand into their content, so that it resonates with their audience. YouTube is probably a platform that makes it more easy than some of the others to call out when things look forced or seemed not right for either the brand or content creator. And so that work that goes into it, that prep work on finding the influencer and briefing the influencer and collaborating with them across the channels is critical, because consumers, your customers, trust them and they want to get product information from them. And so it's on all of us to make sure that we deliver on that, and that there's that credibility and that authority and trustworthiness that is retained. And I know there's some folks out there that think that influencers will talk about anything and that, they shouldn't trust things that are being said by influencers. But, the counterpoint to that, and I see it every single day when we're working with our brands, is that the influencers will pass on partnership opportunities just as much as they'll say no, because their credibility is at stake as well. And I think as long as we all appreciate that and embrace that, consumers will get the information they need in the manner in which they want it today. And so, I talked a little bit about the growth of e-commerce and thinking about outcomes. And that doesn't necessarily only mean like, hey, my influencer is supposed to help my e-commerce business. We know, especially in consumer packaged goods, 90% of sales happen in store, or they did anyway. But wanted to take a step back and make sure that everyone understood that there is a time and a place across the full consumer journey where influencers can help your brand. This could be a funnel slide, or you think about upper funnel awareness driving. What is the purpose of working with influencers when your main KPI is to build desire and excitement for your brand? You want to find influencers who have audiences that are appropriate for your brand and your brand message. And you want to think about things like, you want the feeling to come across that this is a brand that I know and trust, this is a brand that gives me or my family what I need at a reasonable price. And so it's that setting that standard and that brand building that can occur with influencers when you're launching a new product or you're doing a relaunch of your positioning. Influencers also play a very important role when people are in the middle of their consumer journey. They're considering what products that they want to buy. They're not sure they have picked the brand or the specific product that they want. And so you can help them by putting content out there on certain platforms where you can get a little bit deeper. So you're not just showing the product and getting them aware that it exists or that you are a brand that has a product in a certain category. One level deeper, thinking about providing information, answering their questions, and helping them make a decision on which brand and product is right for them so that you can then bring them to the point of purchase. And so regardless of whether you have upper funnel or lower funnel KPIs, providing a path to purchase and enabling shopping is critical. So it should happen at any point. The outcome will change depending on what the goal of your program was. But influencers can drive meaningful traffic into whatever channel or channels that you're looking to have success on. So whether you're using influencers for a channel program on Walmart, or you're looking to do a national campaign where you're giving consumers a choice on which retailer they want to shop at, thinking about that, and in that evaluation and decision-making process, the type of influencers and the type of content that you'll ask them to make will be different than what you're looking for them to do if you're trying to build your brand, drive awareness, and those are things that we think are more important today to think about as you're building your strategy and plan. And last, and maybe the one that's thought about least, but if you think about all the time you spend finding the influencers, negotiating with them, contracting them, briefing them, they can help you after the purchase as well. So whether you're thinking about post-purchase content, advocacy, how to, and this is where content for your own channels and for the retail channels comes into play. And so influencers are authorities in their specific vertical or niche. They're amazing content creators. They are great producers and editors as well. And so they can help you fill content gaps that you have. And they can also advocate for your product after the purchase so that you can help new customers and answer questions further down the funnel. And so knowing that 90% of social media users are influenced to make a purchase after seeing content on social, we also know from research that we've done with key retailers when we place videos within the customer experience on the retailers, that shoppers are willing to spend more after watching this type of social proof within the e-commerce channel. And we've also seen those that have utilized video saw increased in traffic in search. And so YouTube specifically as a platform has this built-in SEO and search value to it. I'll show you a little bit later, but if you think about programs that you might have run on YouTube a year ago, you probably forgot, have moved on, or starting to work on something new. Maybe you moved on to another brand. But I encourage you to look back. Some of the campaigns that we worked on with our customers a year ago are still getting meaningful viewership when people are doing product research, when they're in that consideration or lower funnel part of their journey for whatever it is. And those videos, if optimized appropriately in title and description, will show up. YouTube, Google does a really good job making sure that videos are surfaced based on what people are looking for. And when that happens, that traffic is still very qualified traffic and people are buying. And so we're seeing really interesting trends right now around that platform in particular and the evergreen nature of video content. But the underlying thing that I think is important and something that we at Gem Video focus on a lot is a data-driven approach. We spoke about engagement, reach, viewership impressions as KPIs. They're important, but they're not the only ones. Thinking about click-through rate and traffic and conversion rates are just as important as those upper funnel metrics when building strategy and plans. And so, this is a really simple illustration of something that we start every conversation with a new client around is, there are lots of influencers out there. Anyone can access them. It's not hard to get to someone that you think is right for the brand, but knowing will they work for your brand is a different story. And so, these are two beauty influencers that have very similar channel sizes, rates. They're both great content creators. And so historically, how would you as a brand or someone on the practitioner side make a choice? You can look at engagement rate, but sometimes it's, hey, have I worked with her before? Is she easy to work with? But I think those are bad reasons to make choices on who when you have a selection of great options in front of you. If you can look one level deeper and look at things like click-through rate, conversion rate, you can really start to optimize your programs and have the investment that you have in influencer marketing pay out even more than it is today. And so this is why, we talk about right person, right platform, right time. Possibly a little bit biased. I'll leave that out there. But I do think that YouTube is sometimes overlooked as a channel when working with influencers, or sometimes not even included. I have seen more reports than I'd want, where YouTube isn't even an option in the survey that's put out to consumers or brands, or when asking questions about social media preferences. It's sometimes put in a different bucket, search, SEO. I think that's a mistake. And so I encourage you guys all to think about YouTube. Some of the reasons why people don't use YouTube when thinking about influencer is it's more expensive, it's harder, it's more complicated. The industry just isn't there yet. There are brands that have heavy emphasis on YouTube as well, and so that's not necessarily a blanket statement. But why YouTube and why is video important? More than half of moms look for information about a product on YouTube before making a purchase. I want to say it's now, not just moms, around 56% of people want to watch a video before making a purchase online. So think about that. If you're a brand and consumers want to consume information about your product and video, how do you make it easier for them? How do you show up when they're doing that research and control the conversation a little bit? And then how do you think about bringing that content to them wherever they are in the consumer journey? Consumers are willing to spend more after watching video. And again, that's not necessarily a YouTube comment. And so if you think about activating on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, is video part of your content mix? Are you working with influencers that take great photos only, or are you working with a mix of influencers that can accomplish both? YouTube content stays relevant for longer. This is where I think that SEO comes into play. And you can think about the longevity of the content. Working with influencers in any format is time consuming, it's resource intensive. And in some of the channels, the content's old the minute that it goes live, unless you're putting paid support behind it. That's not the case on YouTube. That content can stick around and have value for as long as that topic is relevant and that product is for sale. We've done some programs around smart home products, and videos from 3 or 4 years ago are still consistently getting views and sending traffic into the retail channel, and people are buying as a result of it. And so there is that evergreen nature and the long tail value that is unlocked with YouTube as a channel. And what we're seeing is that YouTube drives considerably more traffic than Instagram in-feed posts. And so, yes, stories have a better, user experience for swiping up. But if you're thinking in feed, it's harder to get people out of the app and into a shopping mindset. And again, not always the case, but if it is, and if you are looking to do something to move people down funnel, YouTube does organically drive significantly more traffic than Instagram in feed posts. And the last, and I think most important, is they're rich media assets in a time where video production is hard to do. And some organizations are trying to encourage brands to find alternatives to spinning up production shoots, given the pandemic and the complexities with shooting and putting production shoots together. Influencers are great solutions for that. They make amazing content. Some of them have cinematography skills that are matched with, the television industry. And so understanding that, and if you work and partner with those type of content creators, you're getting these rich media assets that can start to fill lots of content gaps. We've seen customers use our content in OLVs, in TV ads. Boosting the content on social platforms is pretty commonplace, but additionally, putting that content within the retail channels. And retailers themselves are asking you guys on the brand side for more video content. They have content standards, and influencers are a great, cost-effective, high-impact solution to that. And so, we've got this philosophy, 1 + 1 = 3, where if you look at your overall marketing needs and you think about influencer as a centerpiece to that, where can they add value and how can you engage with them initially to solve for that? So you're not going back to them after the fact and saying, oh, by the way, what do you think about us using it in an ad? Or, hey, can I put this on my product page? 9 times out of 10, if you do that, they're going to be asking you to re-engage with them. And what does that mean? It means you spending more money. It means them maybe redoing work that they could have done better, smarter the first time. And so there's lots that can be done on YouTube, and there's lots that can be done with video to really enhance the future work that you do with influencer. In a month or so, we're going to be putting out our first research report on some of the metrics around YouTube and different verticals and different tiers of influencers. And so some of the stats in the bottom right are a quick tease to that, but excited to come back to the Brand Innovators community in a few weeks to share more specifics on these performance metrics and the benchmarks that we're starting to see occur within the YouTube channel. And so, okay, so what does all of this mean? How do I approach operationally, structurally, setting myself up for success here? It's about unlocking, omni-channel storytelling and thinking about influencer as much more than just hiring someone to post a piece of content on social. And there's this sense of roles and responsibility that I think sometimes is challenging and different within every organization. And everyone should have a seat at the table is what I firmly believe in. There's communications and planning that is typically led by the brand, the communications team, either internally or externally at a PR firm. I think what is sometimes assumed is that influencer strategy should also sit within that group. It can, but including and inviting partners and vendors that are expert in influencer and do influencer 100% of their day, every single day, is critical. Strategy and plans can be made, and if you think about allocation of funds across platforms or understanding what the KPIs are, they will fundamentally change the mix of what platforms and what influencers. And so I encourage you guys to enlist your partners into that conversation a little bit earlier when thinking about the actual influencer marketing strategy. They then will, yes, be your partner in identifying, negotiating, managing the work. But they have lots of insights and years of experience in social and, in our case, the intersection of social and commerce that can contribute to better upfront planning and aligning on, how do you ladder what influencer is doing up to bigger picture brand goals that you may have that sometimes aren't shared. Then the next part of it is content development. Understanding all the places where this content can add value and live is a way for you to unlock more value and make your investment work harder for you. So thinking about the potential use cases up front actually informs the creative brief that's given to the influencer, the manner in which we ask them to deliver the content back to us, who within the organization might need to look at it or approve it so it can get used for more commercial purposes. And it does actually impact the economics with the influencer as well. And so it's a conversation to be had before, not after the content's created. I think sometimes the thought is, well, let's see what comes in and then we'll figure out what we like and what we do. That's not necessarily a problem. It just might make it harder for you to do what you want as quickly as you want. And that's where asset optimization comes in. If we, Gem Video, we think about social commerce and we think about all the digital touch points that influencer content can live. And so optimizing keywords and descriptions, thinking about what product SKUs or ASINs are featured in the video or that lifestyle image, where can that content go after the influencer posts it? Your media, your organic social channels, and your e-commerce pages. And again, there's a bit of work that goes into making sure you're working with influencers that are okay with that, getting the assets and being able to optimize them for each of those platforms and each of those channels. And a lot of that is easy to do if you can get the right stakeholders within your organization involved and embracing the potential that influencers have. And so measurement, going back to what is the key challenge? It's defining and understanding measurement. And so there are tools and there are technologies to help with that. You can very easily start to look at the traffic that your influencers are driving. And again, your influencer programs might not be optimized to drive traffic. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be tracking it and looking at it. And so every influencer post should have a link and an ability to to make it shoppable, whether that's an organic influencer post, paid media amplification of that influencer content that you're doing, or your own organic content. And so we've built some technology to enable that and make any digital piece of content shoppable, and shoppable at the retailer that the consumer themselves wants to shop at. This is incredibly important as you think about trying to refine and optimize your media investments and getting a sense of who your audience is and where they're most receptive, both to receive that message, the influencer post organically, but then where do they want to shop? Are they a Walmart customer? Are they loyal to Target? By giving the consumer choice, you're able to build out audience profiles and will allow you to do more from a paid remarketing investment standpoint later. And so you're thinking about influencer collecting data after they're being exposed to your message, and then using that information to optimize other things that you may be doing, either deciding which piece of content's converting better and should you put media behind, or just saying, okay, I've now created this audience segment that is a target customer, and how do I remarket to them or market to them something new, specifically knowing that they're someone who has self-identified as preferring to shop at that retailer. And so why stop there? Performance analytics are are available. And it's not meant to answer the ROI question. It's not meant to say, hey, did I sell, tens of thousands of dollars of toothpaste on Walmart? It is really meant to help bring insights and learnings that allow you to make smarter decisions when you're planning. If you think about influencer, it's not a one and done. It is a commitment and investment that your company is making. And at different points throughout the year, you are looking to tap into influencers to reinforce or introduce messaging about your product or brand. And so this information can help you decide who to work with, maybe make different investments from a channel perspective, and really refine the work that you're doing. And there is access to sales data. You just have to be comfortable looking at it for what it is, which is insights and purchase intent. It's not the ROI answer that everyone's looking for. It can be indicative of what might be happening, but it's not the sum of all the parts, right? I go back to what I was saying about my personal use on Instagram. I'm not going to stop everything I'm doing when I see, a shirt that I like, but I might go buy it later. Influencers should still get credit for that, but you might not get attribution specifically for that because I did it later. And so this is directional information, and product sales data and conversion data can really refine how you approach influencer. And just, I think sometimes when we talk about the analytics that we have in our platform, and you think about the traffic that goes into the retail channel and the sales, sometimes it's like, yeah, well, if I'm a $5 product, like, that's not for me, that's not going to work. Again, it's for insights. It's not to prove to your leadership team that you sold a bunch of stuff. But I want to talk through these two in a little bit of detail because I think they're really important to understand. So this is to the left side of the screen. It's a consumer electronic client we worked with last holiday. This is a program that was across multiple channels. And what you're seeing is the initial spike in December when the organic content went live. But there's this continued traffic and sales occurring for this product because people, yes, it's driven by COVID, and the second wave is people shopping at home when they were trying to get their workstation set up. And then you see another surge more recently when people were getting their kids ready for back to school. But it speaks to the ability for the data that can be collected. And also, I think there's a little nod to YouTube here in terms of that evergreen nature of that channel. And if you create content that's a little bit more brand centric than influencer, day in the life, that content can constantly get served up by YouTube, drive traffic down funnel, and get people to buy. On the right-hand side, this is a CPG beauty brand in a more recent activation, but again, a product that's probably less than $10, and still we're seeing very clear correlation between when organic posts driving traffic into the channels and sales occurring, and then continued sales at a much lesser degree, but related to the amount of consumption occurring on the social channels of that influencer content. And so it can work in many verticals. It can work for DTC customers as well. And so again, it's having the courage of your conviction to start to want to look at these metrics and understand what they're intended to open up for you, and not to be scared by the absolute dollar numbers that you're seeing. You were investing in influencer before this data was available because you saw that it was impacting your business. There were correlations elsewhere. That's still the case. And again, when I think about purchase intent insights, the information around what people are buying are sometimes just interesting and fascinating. A CE client of ours would always get a kick out of if someone bought socks after looking at their video. Again, has nothing to do with their business, but a lot of times what you're seeing is product correlations, and there are some interesting things that could influence the editorial ask or maybe help you think about, well, hey, am I really reaching the right audience if they watch and they engage with my content to benchmarks or standards on the social platforms, but then these people were not even buying in my category. That's the type of information and insights that can be unlocked by better measurement and tracking. And, so I spend a lot of time talking about the analytics. And so I wanted to just put this quote out here because I think this answers the, well, why? A couple of years ago, Mark Pritchard, demanded for the industry to create, a new media supply chain, right? A better ecosystem that was focused on quality, transparency, and control, so that brands knew what was happening with the millions of dollars they were investing in advertising. Nielsen exists to provide that level of, transparency and leveling of the playing field. And the future of influencer marketing is going to require that same level of rigor and discipline and standardization so that brands can feel confident that they're making the right choices on the partners to work with, the influencers that they're working with, and the amount of money that they're investing in this. And so if you think about how much of the funding that you're doing for influencer is being pulled from other parts of your marketing budget, we want to make sure that there's measurements and measurement standards that give you the confidence in making those decisions, and then being able to monitor and track the impacting results and the optimization and improvement over time. And so, and what does this end up meaning? It can help you brief influencers better. So this is a fine piece of content that had really good performance organically, but there are a few things that we're missing. The brand logo is not visible. She's not in the bathroom, and that's typically where you wash your face and put your makeup on. And there isn't like a really clear central focus point. These are some of the things that you probably, if you are in the advertising industry, might have heard talked about when you're evaluating the persuasiveness or the potential impact of your TV commercials. The same can be applied to influencer, like how is this content inspiring shopping, and how are you making sure that you're briefing influencers and holding them to standards so that they're putting out content that should work and should resonate. And then when you have that content, it opens up the ability to help with your e-commerce business. This is one of the things that I think is really where the future of influencer is heading. There's lots of softwares or technologies that help you guys bring social content through hashtags into the retail channel. Well, what about you creating your own and making it so that you can bring it and put it in other places? And so you can see Walmart is a good example of a brand that has really started to reimagine the digital shelf. And it looks more like an Instagram post than it does a retail page. And that's because that's the type of content, that lifestyle content that customers are wanting. And the great news is it's having the impact that you guys need. There are two ways to improve your e-commerce business: drive more traffic and lift your conversion rate. Influencers do both. They can drive qualified traffic, and when you put their content on your product pages, people are more likely to buy, they're willing to spend more, and we are seeing across the board with our customers increases in conversion rate of 20% or more in some cases, simply by optimizing and placing that lifestyle product image and product video specifically within your retail experience. And so, if you are an e-commerce person on your brand team and you're like, oh geez, I've got so many holes to fill from a content standpoint, don't have big budgets, influencers can be partnered with without them even posting to their social channels. So again, if you change your perspective on how valuable partnering with influencers can be for your business, there's lots of opportunity. And why should you believe anything I'm saying? One, I've been in the industry for over a decade, and Gem Video is a trusted Amazon partner. We buy media for our clients on their platform. We're an approved creative services vendor. We've been part of their beta programs for live streaming, and we're one of their influencer agencies of record. And so we're able to see things from sort of both sides of the coin, from the brand side, what's happening, and then also sometimes get a behind the curtain look at the results on a retailer themselves. And so, if your organization is still very siloed and your comms team and your brand team sits over here and your e-commerce team is on a different floor, I guess that doesn't matter now when everyone's working from home. Maybe you're not thinking about how do you guys collaborate and work together. But when you do, and this is a really crazy looking slide, so apologies, there's a ton of opportunity to unlock. And so what this is it's looking at traffic from influencer, timing of when the influencers posted organically, conversion rate data, and product page traffic data from the retailers. And so if you layer your commerce data, your social data, and your influencer data on top of each other, you can really start to correlate and see the impact that influencers having. And again, it's not exact. It's not actuals, there isn't that clear, line from beginning to end, but you are starting to see really tight correlations. And we're hearing time and time again from our clients anecdotes like, hey, yeah, that influencer posted and, we saw a bump in sales immediately after. We shouldn't bank on that being the like 100% answer, but it should give you your courage of your conviction to sort of like lean in and dig in a little bit more to the data and start to understand how they're reinforcing each other and how better collaboration within your organization can lead to increased results. And what does that all mean? Think about closed loop marketing. There's credible influencers, there's your brand storytelling, and then there's making sure that influencer content is available beyond just their audience, but for all of your existing and potential customers, and thinking about how to introduce influencer into that full consumer journey. And so, talk for a while, happy to answer some questions in a moment, but, if there's 5 takeaways that you get from what I just shared with you, I think it boils down to these 5 things. Planning across the customer journey. Again, influencers can play a pivotal role in supporting your brand, especially if you're working under more constrained budgets. So don't just think of them as a broadcast. Think about them as content partner, and think about all of the other places where you can have impact from partnering with them. The second is build outcome-based strategies. When I talk about performance analytics and collecting that data, it's not about telling a sales ROI story. It's about understanding the audience of the influencer, the purchase intent that's happening afterwards, and taking that information back and using it to build better plans and to optimize the work that you're doing. If you partner with 20 Instagram influencers for a product launch in March and you want to have some seasonal messaging during a buying period, don't just find 15 new people. Don't just assume that all 15 of them are good. See who's working harder for your brand. And it can even help you think about like, hey, should I have a different relationship with this person? He or she is consistently working hard for my brand. Maybe I should put them off to the side and think about things like ambassador programs. And so it's building outcome-based strategies, and it's using that performance analytics as a mechanism to do so. Work with experienced partners. Everyone wants to do influencer. It's fun, it's exciting. Everyone isn't expert at it. So make sure you find partners that are experienced in your vertical, are expert at what they do, and it is what they do all day, every day. I think it's super important, especially, as we look to get more out of what we're doing. Integrate video into the mix. My company's called Gen Video. I came from a cable background, very much believe in the power of video story and the demand that consumers are having for video in all aspects of their life. So give them what they want and talk to them in the way that they want to be engaged with by your brand. And I think video is undoubtedly necessary at this point, regardless of where and what platform you're activating on. And then last, think about the e-commerce gaps. I think there's really low-hanging fruit for anyone that's currently investing in influencers to think about, can you repurpose that content? Can you, the next time you're asking for that content, do so with influencers with another potential use case in mind afterwards? And that's one way for you to extract more value from the engagement that you have and see more evergreen, all year long impact for your brand. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the presentation and see if there's some questions. All right, let's see. There we go. All right. So first question, how do you approach emerging media channels and how do they factor into your overall strategy? You know, I don't think that's a one size fits all answer. Just this morning was meeting with my account team and we were talking about a client who was looking to reintroduce some of their brands. And so, you know, despite the fact that we love video and think YouTube's a great platform, we don't include YouTube in every single strategy that we put together for brands. And so I think there's a time and a place for emerging brands and emerging platforms, and it should always start with test and learns. And so I would never say to a brand, let's just double down here without any proof that it's going to work. And so we definitely take a test and learn approach to new channels like TikTok. I'd say there's some of our clients that are really doubling down there and it's working nicely for them, but it was after we did something smaller. And so I encourage all brands to explore new platforms, both by just doing your research, having conversations internally, and if you think there's something there and your audience is there, that's an important one. If your audience is there, test it out and then get some insights, get some learnings, and then, you know, reapply or expand out from there. Okay. What innovation and technologies are you utilizing to execute your strategies? Has that changed since the pandemic began? So in terms of innovations, you know, I guess I'll answer this from the platform perspective. And if you think about the first question that was asked, every single time a new platform or a new post format on a platform pops up, there's new technology that needs to get built in order to make sure that we can collect the data, bring back that data to brands. And so the innovation is typically around how do we make sure that we're not missing out on a big part of the overall social media landscape first. And then same thing with the retailers, right? Like retailers are doing more and more, making it easier for brands to get access to data sometimes is a little slow of a process, but thinking about that and making sure that we're constantly solving brand problems and building solutions that solve the next problem and the next problem. Okay, so I think we're at time for the next session. And so right now, basically, thank you guys for joining. I am so excited to introduce the next part of the day. And so the next session is a fireside chat with two amazing guests. We're joined by Cynthia Maller, the director of Next Gen Content at Walmart. And her mission is simple: move the brand experience from approachable to irresistible. She believes that the real special effect of CGI is its ability to enhance the plot lines of storytelling to customers. This session will be moderated by Jason Kleeman, the General Manager of Branded Content at Triple Lift. And so let me welcome both Cynthia and Jason to the stage. Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you. Cynthia, can you hear me?
Hi.
Can everyone hear
I can hear you.
you? Great. I assume someone will let us know if we're just miming into the camera. It's a pleasure to speak to you again. It's good to see you. Your bio is incredibly irresistible, one of the best I've read. So if Jessica didn't read that, I was going to. So now that people sort of know what your title is and what your mission is, can you dive into that a little bit more and talk about how you came to Walmart and what the director of next gen content is actually responsible for?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's like awesome that someone wants to talk about brand, because I'm usually forcing the conversation either over lunch or with my friends. So I love to be amongst my people. Thank you. I got to Walmart. I think a lot of us these days have meandered where we've gone because we shift with the industry. So I started in traditional when the media plan was just 3 stripes, which was TV, radio, and outdoor. I'm sorry, 4, print. And then I came to Silicon Valley in 1998 and was lucky enough to be the creative director at Yahoo, which was basically the university of the internet, like a fire hose of information. And I still harken back to a lot of things I learned there. And then after that, just became that Silicon Valley baby, creative director, UX director, all of the new things that we had to put into storytelling. I will say the thing that I love about working in retail and e-commerce is that the results are immediate. When you work in any kind of traditional brick and mortar, or you're doing anything that maybe involves like just traditional brand TV or whatever, don't have the immediate. And, I love to be wrong. I have these hypotheses. I'm like, let's do this and this. And then, the data tells you very quickly that you don't know what you're talking about. So, but it's a great. So I got to Walmart through companies like PayPal and Yahoo and small startups like Touch of Modern and Munchery. I worked for samsclub.com for a short time. And that's where I really fell in love with the people at Walmart. So I was really happy to come back, so to speak. Yeah.
That's great. And I'd love to put a pin in some of your experience and actually come back to it if we have time. But with regard to your current role with Walmart, and you're saying you fell in love with the people, that's fantastic. Can you give a little bit of the insider's view of what it's like to work for Walmart, and sort of in the context of how they support innovation, because clearly you have probably a fairly unique role that's pretty fashion forward. So can you give us a peek behind the scenes?
Yeah, I thank you for the question, because Walmart, I will say they're a great brander, because even hearkening back to Sam Walton, he was all about the customer first, and great branding is that. So he as a presence keeps us all grounded. And so innovation at Walmart is actually quite lovely, because you can't just talk about innovation. Like if the word customer isn't in the sentence, I'm just not going to prevail. So Walmart is incredibly innovative. We've got some whip smart, turned on people that in labs, and our engineers are some of the best. But it is always about the customer. And perhaps you say, well, every company's like that. Well, they're not, because I've been in quite a few. And I really love that sort of like baseline human grounding, because I say with innovation and technology in Silicon Valley, we're surrounded by it, we're immersed in it, and it's just a very exciting place. And Silicon Valley now is all over the world. I use that like in air quotes. But you have to say to yourself, am I just using the technology because it's shiny? Like I like to point to, I love movies. Can't go to the movie theater anymore, but that's okay. So I say like the original Lion King made me cry. The new Lion King was a bunch of new technology, and I love CGI, but why? The story wasn't any different. So were they just redoing the movie because they thought they could make it look more real? Did any of us ask for it to look more real? So we have to always say to ourselves, am I just trying to shoehorn this technology into a solution here because I think the technology is cool? You have to think about it the other way around. You know, are the customers looking for an enhanced experience? I would point to 360 spins on a product detail page. That was a good use of technology. You know, there's an MVP version of it where you just stitch together photographs, but in any case, that's a case where you say this technology will enhance the storytelling and will be useful, more useful than that previous experience. So they keep you honest at Walmart. Like, you know, what's it about? What's it really about?
Yeah. Well, I would posit that you may go beyond sort of a customer-centric point of view and maybe even further towards like a human-centric point of view. Do you buy into that? And what does that actually mean to you? And can you sort of give an example of how that might come to life?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're just fundamentally flawed. We're like a mass of chemicals, and none of us get it right every day when we wake up. So if we get it too perfect on the branding side, people won't really see themselves in it. So I think especially with the work I do, I think it's okay to be a little bit imperfect. The interesting thing that's happening now is I can't remember a time when the entire world was unified at once with a piece of their demographic, like, or the psychographics. I don't think there's ever been a time at all where every customer right now has a facet of their life that is the same as every other customer. So I don't know if we'll have time to talk about content in the time of COVID, but maybe that's another session. Yeah, you know, branding is a relationship. Have you ever been in a perfect relationship? I haven't. So I actually really think about it just like any relationship. You know, am I trying to be someone I'm not? Am I losing myself in this other person? Do I really love them? What am I here for? So
yeah,
kind of a
sure.
way to say it, but yeah.
Authenticity and the fact that authentic things sometimes have, you know, warts on them, if you will, or aren't perfect. So I appreciate that perspective. I think with the next question, which I really want to ask you about one of Walmart's more recent acquisitions, Art.com, I think we could actually, I mean, I'd love to hear about, number one, sort of how that typifies your approach to brand strategy and content. I think it's a really fascinating kind of brand study, if you will. And also, I think it has relevance to, you know, what's happened in the past 6 or 9 months with regard to people, and are people interested in buying art in a world that's, you know, overshadowed by, you know, very scary events. Can we sort of start with like what that was like when Walmart bought it and what your role was in sort of pivoting either from because of business requirements or whatever else?
Yeah, thank you for that. So Art.com has been an amazing brand case study. I was lucky to be a part of what's going on. When they were acquired, I was creative director at hayneedle.com. And so we paid close attention to that acquisition because we were also one. So I was asked to help out because they're very, you know, they're like a startup within Walmart. They're pretty small and the very focused piece of business. So it's sort of the opposite of Walmart, right? I always say, like, how many navigation tabs do you have? It's like, you know, it's very simple. So it was an incredible brand challenge, which of course is more interesting. So here's what happened. So Walmart has had, I don't even know, I should know exactly how long they've been in business, so please don't tell me when I don't have that at my fingertips. But Walmart has had years and years of nerves of steel of sticking with a very simple brand strategy, which is save money, live better. And Walmart really doesn't hang its hat on sales. They're not a place where they just have a ton of sales. They focus more on the everyday, building the trust that if you shop here, you are getting guaranteed or, everyday low price. Well, with Art.com, they wanted to pivot to that. And we all stood around and went, wait. So you want to take a 15-year-old company that has built a customer base with a giant % sign in all of the work and take that away. No more lever. We all went, wow, this is going to be really interesting. So we took a look at what does it mean to just sell things with a % sign? Are we selling % off? What are we selling? So we had to take a step back and say, what are we actually about to do by saying no more sales? Well, what we're about to do is put an emphasis on the inspiration and de-emphasize the math. I realize we're asking the customer to do a whole lot of math. That's not fun. I know it's not fun for me. So, % off, and they would change it every day. It's like 30% off site-wide or 40% off framing. And when you came to Art.com, you really had to do a lot of math. And so that was getting in the way. And so this is an opportunity to say, well, we're going to focus on inspiration and give you less math. Even in the smallest detail, like we're doing a lot of wonderful things on the website to fulfill that brand strategy. And and I'm also in charge of UX, thankfully, because that is such a huge brand lever. So we said, even when you're on the PDP and the quantity, even having the quantity box be plus minus rather than a drop down, probably we should look at, again, too many math symbols. Don't make me do all the calculations. So we simplified pricing tiers. We made it a lot easier. So we really wanted to focus on making the experience of buying art, it's like a joy to find it and a joy to own it. And then on top of that, we said, well, now what? Because now we actually have to talk about our product. And that was something they hadn't emphasized, believe it or not. They have the largest catalog online. So then we had to say, well, we do believe that art is transformative. Nobody needs it. However, it is quite nourishing. So when you believe that what you sell will actually, bring some joy or help people through a day or even help them to unify a room or, art is perhaps the last thing you think of in a room. So it's a huge brand challenge. Okay, we're not giving you any money off, but we want you to buy and we want you actually to become like a loyal customer. And people have responded. It's a long answer. Then COVID hit and we're like, oh my gosh, how can we sell art? People are worried about toilet paper, But we just decided, let's just be honest. Again, the warts and all. Let's be honest about what's going on. You can't go anywhere anymore. Maybe you want some posters. You can't see your friends. Maybe you want to frame your photos. But that was still more inspiration, less math. So we had put in place a brand strategy that, like any great brand strategy, has to take you through the bad times and the good times. So long answer.
No, that's fascinating. And I think that even extending sort of your strategy to kind of show customers that you're on their side, and if they're sitting at home and they're staring at blank walls, that art might be something that they can actually have a relationship with and might even want to buy during a strained time. Extending that to like the Black Lives Matter movement. I know that you've actually, that Art.com has actually showcased Black artists, and sort of, I think that, what has been your approach to that? It feels like it's sort of an organic way to connect with people and what's on their minds these days.
Well, boy, talk about a tough time as a corporation. Because, people are ready to dogpile, even in a good day. If you, as a company, if you show them the minute you show or like you're jumping on a bandwagon, it's dangerous. So we all said, and I think a lot of brands went through this. There were two things about Black Lives Matter. There was the initial, do we make a statement on our homepage? What do we do? And then there's just the, how do we then support the movement in a way that's really authentic. So I think the first thing that happened was we were all wondering, like, is it today? Is it tomorrow? Do we not say, what if we say something too soon? What do we say? And then we all went, you know what? Not perfect. Let's do it. And let's do it in a way that makes sense. And actually, really lovely moment to say, how can I do justice to what's going on and really express ourselves? And what we did was there was a couple minority folks in the creative team who on their own decided what it is they wanted to say. And they started with social channels. And again, Walmart is a place that encourages you to go ahead and be entrepreneurial. So they didn't ask permission. We trusted one another. And they went ahead and started doing things on the social channel that, because we have a strong brand strategy that everybody has in their pocket, it was the right thing for us. And then I think about, in terms of switching focusing on Black artists, giving them a bigger voice. A year ago, we would have to have done that with discounts. There wasn't room a year ago for just highlighting the artists. Again, more inspiration, less math. We would have done it with discounts, which it just adds an element of like, well, that's not the focus, and certainly wasn't the right thing to do with focus on Black artists, right? So, and I know that everybody out there, well, even in their personal life, it was like this, we kind of froze, and we want so much to do the right thing and get it right, but we're not always going to get it right. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you sort of a question about maybe low tech and one about high tech. That we're sticking on the Art.com example for the time being. .com, you traffic, and you actually the product is visual. You use a lot of visuals to actually show it off and to presumably get people to convert and purchase, ultimately make purchase decisions. But part of content is using different formats. One of those formats is good old text that can actually support and explain and persuade and so on and so forth. I know that you mentioned to me sort of an interesting, sort of leveraging kind of the analogy of kind of giving people an hors d'oeuvre or a nugget of content to help them either understand, or to even give them some knowledge that might give them some social currency. Can you talk about a little bit about that strategy?
Yeah, thank you. So I think there's the brand campaign, and then there's also what are we doing to help people tell stories. So the same with Hay Needle too. Back when people could come over, but when you have something that you bring into your home, what we all want to be able to do is tell the story. If you get something at a retailer, even if someone down the street has the same thing, but you're able to say, oh, it's made out of reclaimed bamboo or whatever it is. So with Art.com, we thought, every artist is an independent artist, which makes you seem cool. Like, any art you have, and if we could help them tell a story a little bit, like I would say, before I worked there, I will just admit to you, I didn't know that Basquiat was not still alive. Okay, I'll totally admit that. So I started researching. I'm like, this guy's so cool. He dated Madonna, and the story behind him is both tragic and wonderful. And so we give people these nuggets of information that are unexpected about the person, because artists naturally are these mysterious people who are maybe hard to get to know, and they work in isolation. But through our wonderful vendors, they tell us a story about these artists. Then we brought that to some content. I talked to you about, in today's world, it's even more important to give away content to help people through this time. We've got to do things like Walmart had done, a summer camp, which was so wonderful. I think the drive-in movies is a way of giving away that content. And so for Art.com, we thought, okay, people are stuck at home. Let's do Art Studio. Let's ask some of our artists We had a woman who does photography with her iPhone, and the stuff is beautiful. We had a woman who does watercolor. So we have free art studios through Insta Live with the actual artist for free. And we helped people, whether they had kids or just trying to get a new hobby. So that was something we decided to connect you as an artist. You have artists inside you. You're talking to an artist, and you can tell that story forever. Maybe you're going to hang up what you did, maybe not. But helping people feel like an artist makes it more fun to have art around you. I don't know. I wasn't ever. Oh, I went to Art Center, but that's a whole nother nervous breakdown story. But in general, you don't get a chance to be taught by a real artist. Yeah.
That's great. So that was the low tech question. The high tech question is, can you talk a little bit about, how you use how you marry some of the higher tech things that you use, like CGI or other kinds of technologies, how you inject it into, the digital experience for consumers. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What is the scope of it? Are there sort of illustrative, examples that can help us understand how you marry art and technology in this instance?
Right, and so goes inside, so goes outside, right? So looking at more inspiration and less math internally, Art.com is somewhat of a startup within Walmart. And as creative director, I came in and I like to take a look at the operations too. What are we doing? What are we spending? What is the workflow? Can we make things more efficient so that maybe we're not trying to save money, but we can reallocate money? So when I took a look at the printed catalog, which is beautiful, I just took a look at the way that it was produced. And when you do real photo shoots, of which I'm a part of and I love, but when you do real photo shoots, there is a limitation. So we used to go and rent a house or a house or two and bring all the art, often in our trunks of our car and set up in that house. Now, what that means is you just have that one house. So if you need a kitchen, it's going to be that kitchen. So I saw an opportunity to take each piece of art, and if we use CGI, each piece of art gets its own story and its own room in a particular type of house. Now, you can't understate the value of the fact that there is an amazing cost savings with CGI. But the real beauty of it is that flexibility. Because it's less expensive, but it's an unfair competition, really. So the reason it was right for Art.com was both operational, but also storytelling. And this is what I mean. This is a case where by using technology, yes, it's richer, more rich, because maybe I have a Basquiat. And for that, we might say, we want a room where it's like a room with a grand piano and a high ceiling, because the person who would buy a giant Basquiat is not someone that doesn't take risks. So then we might have like color of the year. We had a very beautiful, but very non-risky set of paintings. And we said, okay, for this person, the room we want to design is not quite as risk-taking. It's a living room. There aren't a lot of bright colors. So we couldn't do that if we had to use one house in one location, because we're not some, like, I don't know what company has $1 billion to spend on print, but so as a result, every piece of art gets a story, and the customer is able to see those different stories. And it just makes for a more enjoyable book, a piece of print. And then, of course, you can leverage those assets across all channels. You own them in perpetuity. Again, I'm not comparing traditional to CGI, but there are some operational implications that you can't ignore and are no longer practical for a company that's really trying to leverage every bit of operating capital for good reason. So it's been wonderful. I hope people sign up for the catalog, but hold me accountable. Like, tell me if you don't think it looks real. Anyway, it's been a wonderful use of technology, and I will say also selfishly, I wanted to show that CGI does not take away from engagement storytelling. Because one said, if it doesn't look perfect, people aren't going to buy anything. That's not exactly what happened. It's in fact the opposite. It's a beautifully designed catalog. Lots of things go into it being a successful piece of direct mail. But yeah, it's been amazing and fun, to build a different house for every painting, basically.
Cool. Thank you for that. It's fascinating stuff. Shifting gears a little bit, I think you mentioned PayPal, and in one of your former lives, I think you were the global creative director of PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a much different kind of company in some ways, and it's transactional. It's facilitating payments. Doesn't have a product per se, like in the same way that an Art.com or Walmart does. Can you talk about your approach there to brand strategy and content, and what kinds of things you brought to the table, and what kinds of differences you saw because of it?
Yeah, that was again an amazing privilege to work on that brand and to I think make a difference on that brand. So PayPal, because it was financial, they really had an assumption that they needed to have a lot of banking imagery and banking language, because they felt that if they didn't have that, people wouldn't feel safe. So I counted one time the number of times in content they said safe and secure, it was like 75 times on the simple sign up journey. And they had a comprehension problem as well, which was, well, what is PayPal? Is it a credit card? Can I put money in as a bank? So they had this terrible comprehension problem, and they acted like a bank, which they weren't. So we did a bit of actual neuroscience research, which I encourage people to do, because on a precognitive level, people will feel a certain way that they won't self-report, and it's really important to get at that. So what we learned was, actually, people expected PayPal to be human. That's why they were using PayPal. It was the anti-bank, which the libertarian founders would probably get a kick out of. So it's the anti-bank. They wanted us to be human, and we had not one human being anywhere in the advertising, the user experience. There was no humans. And we used language like, instead of how would you like to pay, it was like, what is your funding source? It's like that. And so doing just the text audit of that experience, it was an amazing exercise. So we found out that people expected us to be human. We were being the opposite. And also they said, you keep saying you're safe and secure. Like, we know that. What else do you have to say? Like, stop saying that, because it's table stakes. So then we were like, wow, we're using safe and simple globally, by the way. And they're telling us they don't need to know that. They already know that. So hundreds of millions of dollars behind that brand strategy. Then we had to go shift. But I do want to mention a few small details, which, as you know, a great brand is made in those small details. So we started to warm up the language, right? Speak with just regular language, like ways to pay rather than funding source. I took a look at the customer service scripts that they use, and I went through and I warmed up, humanized just 12 words in those scripts. And by doing that, our customer satisfaction rate went up. It's probably proprietary, but I would say in the high double digits. Just by doing that, which once you start to do these small things, you realize, wow, that is accurate. I took a look at the logo from a cognitive perspective. There was a lot of sharp edges on that logo. I rounded them all out, which is more human. We don't have any sharp right angles on our body. So lots of little things that we were able to do that made a difference using people. What a concept. And in an authentic way. So that was an amazing moment where we all went, maybe we're using too much navy blue. The logo is blue, so globally you gotta watch out if you want to start to change the signs on 75 buildings. So we left that alone, and that's fine. And blue is okay, but we didn't need to rely on military navy blue. If you think about navy blue and all the thing it stands for, your sweatshirt is lovely. I'm not saying that, but it's military, it's banking, it's on our flag. So great branding experience to find out that the gut feeling people had is not what you were talking about. It's such a dissonance. If we didn't get that right, we would have been in trouble by now. Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. It was the first time I've worn a quarter zip sweater since March 12th.
Nice.
It's in your honor. So I know that you probably can't get into specifics about sort of how technology manifests itself with like Walmart proper, but can you give us like a little bit of an idea of how sort of an example, or how sort of an overview of how you approach that with regard to Walmart being the CPG giant and retailer that it is?
Yeah. So internally, because of the scale of Walmart, there are obviously, if you take a look at how many navigation points there are, you get a sense of how many teams there are behind each one of those departments, right? There are a lot of them. So as a result, you have a lot of disparate ways that you're managing content, creating content. They have a very strong brand team and brand guidelines, but still you've got a huge amount of people dispersed, different lines of business. So technology at Walmart is important and used well and developed as much as it needs to be to keep those lines of content fluid and consistent. And you may not know everybody else, but you can be assured that if you need to find content, let's see, that's being written for a particular division, then you can find that easily. It's very important for us to simplify the complex billions of words, because it could very easily get to the point where you have no idea what, let's say, the electronics team, what do they photograph? Where are those photographs? I would like to take a look at them. Why? It doesn't have to have a reason. So the photographs, the words, all of the internal systems, they have a team of people that are so smart with helping us all stay connected internally. And that is an achievement, the scale of which I don't think I've ever seen. I am constantly impressed. It's a lot to keep straight, and they do an amazing job of it. And that's the kind of technology nobody ever sees. And maybe it's not sexy, but when you're working there and you can access things so easily on behalf of the customer and consistency, it's just very impressive to me. I'm like, the scale of Walmart is constantly amazing to me. And I feel very grateful to be able to be almost like an observer in a lot of cases to how that business is run. And it's an amazing place to learn from. I mean, it's just a lifetime of learning. There's never enough time. Yeah.
That's great. We've got a bunch of questions, so let me throw a few at you real quick hits. Okay. And I don't think any of them will be will stump you, but one of course is about working from home and how sort of that and social distancing altered consumer media and digital habits. What are you seeing when it comes to the types of behavioral changes, and how are you adapting to those?
You mean sort of taking a look at what are our customers doing every day, and
I think part of it is less, probably less in store, right? Less foot traffic, more digital experiences, but maybe the different kinds of products that are getting sort of more exposure or seeing more demand for as than before all these events have taken place.
Yeah, and I certainly, again, Walmart has a large scale and a large reach, so we might be the macrocosm, but I think if you interviewed probably any retailer, they would see that there is a shift in what people are buying or the amount of something. And, like I said, we are all now connected by this. So, but if I remove myself out of the equation, we are seeing people, as they always do, take technology and use it to how they need it. So I don't know, I'm doing grocery pickup more. And luckily, we were positioned again, to help people save money and live better. We had the tools, and we're realizing people are using those tools. Grocery pickup is a big deal. I think there's this funny meme about everyone is supposed to develop a new hobby and be really good at it. And then there's people that have kids at home. So I think that having kids at home has proved to be one of the biggest challenges. And so we're seeing people be so inventive and bring home things that will help them through that experience. And I mean, the kids are very confused. I mean, they really don't know what's going on. So it's a really hard parenting moment, not just practically, but emotionally too. So what we're seeing is not so surprising on any level, but what we're finding, and I think all of us could say this, is we in the beginning of this, we all thought we were going to snap back. It's 3 weeks and we're going to snap back. But we've all, I think, found new ways of doing things that might actually stick. Maybe I like doing athleisure all the time, or maybe I didn't need to go get my nails done. Maybe I'm good at doing it myself. So these things that people are learning to be more self-sufficient, and it's creating a confidence in areas that didn't exist before, which is nice to help people. I mean, I have purple hair, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So, I've learned to do purple hair myself. I'm not saying so. I think we're all uncovering the fact that we're a lot more capable than we thought. So Walmart already has in place technologies to help us through this. And again, they've been giving away a lot of things that are wonderful, like the drive-ins and the summer camp. And they've really, they're so tuned in to the average American and their emotions that they were already pretty good at this. So it's just amplified. But what I see is confidence that wasn't there and new opportunities that, for Art.com, we sell art kits. They were like buried deep in the site. Well, we pulled those forward. So now you can buy like canvases and paints and colored pencils, and we have like color by number for adults. And so that's cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know if we're at time or whether we have time for one more question. I'm not sure if the brand innovators folks will let us know, but I'll just throw a quick question at you.
Okay.
And see, we've sort of talked a lot about your owned channels. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to emerging media channels and how they factor into your overall strategy, whether that's social platforms or maybe advanced advertising or other sorts of, sort of environments where, you want to do storytelling?
Yeah, I think that that's probably a minefield. Yeah. Anything that, so I'd say that we want to take advantage of the new channels that are emerging, if they make sense for our customers. I don't know that we're going to be doing Snapchat filter, like we have to really look at like all the little sprinklings of things and ask like, where's the investment going to make sense? But I don't think I can speak to like new channels we might be jumping on, or even the social strategy. I think is something that is so personal to Walmart that I'd rather people see it manifest than talk about how before it manifests.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I see Jessica on here, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to turn it back over to her. But before I do, I just wanted to thank you for a really like lively and rich and interesting conversation. I think it's really fascinating, and gets us lets us take really have another lens and take a different sort of peek inside how some of these businesses work and how your approach to brand strategy really manifests itself. So thank you so much.
I also want to say that we are hiring, and so I want people, if they need to, I want them to go on Walmart Careers. I would recommend it, and we are hiring. So I think it's important to say that these days. So
perfect.
Thank you so much. Hi, Jessica.
Hi there. Thanks, Jason, and thanks so much, Cynthia. I've got Jen in the name of my company, Next Gen Content in your title. I thought we'd be kindred spirits, then I saw we both have purple hair, and so there's that too. And so you talked about learning how to do things and pulling up the how-to or DIY type kits on Arc.com. Have you thought about the role Walmart can play from a content standpoint in helping guide the customer to be more self-sufficient? From where we sit, we think about where that inspiration can come on social, but how are you thinking about that for Walmart and helping make it easier for the customer who maybe is buying those products, whether it's cooking recipes, like doing an art project, or building a desk in their new work from home space? Like, is that an area that you guys are looking to expand how you help the customer, or maybe you guys already are today? And if so, could you share more about it?
Let's see. Well, one of the ways for sure that Walmart is good at and will continue to look at, we want to look at the buying habits, and we always want to look at, it's important to us to have what people are looking for. We focus a lot on that. So what we never want to happen is for someone to want something. If we see a trend, we make sure that we lean into that. And if they need some, support, I would say even something as unsexy as making sure that, how like the assembly instructions or things like that, making sure that those are accessed maybe more easily than they used to be, because we know people are trying to do things themselves. And just making sure that we have what it is they need, and because we do want to be on people's side. So we're paying attention to buying habits, like what we were talking about before. And again, we want to be that resource that's on their side. In many, many places in America, Walmart is a place that the family comes and spends time, they feel comfortable there. And that's a testament to the brand itself. So we want to continue to be almost comforting in that way. So you'll see the language and the drive-in, I keep pointing the drive-in is so much about that.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. And we're not the only ones doing it, but it's just, it's sweet, I think.
Well, yeah, it's such a great way to bring customers there and have them continue to be a part of the brand, even if they're not going in stores. And so, and it's a good change of pace, getting families outside of their own four walls, which is even just for mental health, super important right now.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much. It was great to listen to you and Jason chat, and appreciate the time today. And so I think with that, we're going to transition into the last part of the day. And so enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thank you so much. We're now moving into our final session of the day. We are joined by Carolyn Pollock. She is the Chief Marketing Officer of Tailored Brands Incorporated. Carolyn has a proven marketing and management career with over 20 years experience and track record driving growth and business successful brands. I'm so excited to stay on to moderate this session with Carolyn. And with that, I'm hoping that she's going to be joining me.
I am here. I'm just trying to get my video. I don't see. There we go.
Here we go.
There we go. I'm also a technology wizard.
Well, welcome. Thanks. It was great to connect with you prior. I'm very excited to be able to have a conversation with you and let you share with the Brand Innovators community what you're working on with Tailored Brands and how some of the retail brands that you work on are evolving and, thinking about what it means to be omnichannel. So, maybe if you want to spend a minute introducing yourself and, the work that you do, generally speaking, for Tailored Brands, and then we can jump into some more specifics on things that you're doing, either as a result of COVID or just as you think about how do you continue to provide that seamless experience between that online and in-store shopping for the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thanks, Jessica, and to the Brand Innovators team for having me here today. This is my first Brand Innovators event and super happy to be here. So just a little background, those of you who don't know Tailored Brands. So Tailored Brands is actually the name of the company that owns a portfolio of brands that are leaders in the menswear space. So it includes Joseph A. Bank. It includes Moores, which is a brand up in Canada. It includes K&G Fashion Superstores, which is actually a brand more regional in the based out of the Atlanta area, and we sell menswear, women's wear, and kids clothing in K&G. And then we're the owners of Men's Warehouse as well. And that's the brand that I probably spend the most time on as well. And we're in the midst of an amazing transformation journey. So we probably won't talk too much about it here, but we did file for Chapter 11 in early August. And I think we're really very much looking forward to the successful immersion or emergence from that at the end of November. Everything's very much on track for that. And, like many of our colleagues in the retail space, COVID was a really challenging time for all of us. And, your store footprint gets closed for a quarter. That does a pretty big hit to your business. But what that did do for us is actually help accelerate a lot of the transformation that we already had underway. So I've actually was a consultant for about 10 years, was like in packaged goods way back when, went into e-commerce and worked with eBay for about 6 years, and then was consulting for about 10. Tailored Brands was one of my clients, and I was brought on to help with, my partner and I came in and helped with brand strategy, and then just generally started getting more and more dug into the marketing and looking at different ways to sort of modernize the marketing mix, and as the business itself was looking to modernize. And so this transformation journey that Tailored Brands has been on, everything from modernizing the store footprint, modernizing store interiors, modernizing the way business is conducted, and particularly really ramping up e-commerce, all was well underway prior to COVID hitting. And we were starting to see, sort of the benefits of that work, where all 4 brands had positive store sales comps to the prior year in February. So we were on a really great track. And then, of course, COVID hit. But the blessing in disguise has been that it really forced us to accelerate a lot of the things that we had underway. So clearly for everybody, it's really accelerated shopping online, and that's been the same for us. But it's also enabled us to add a lot more to our omni-channel experience. Pick up in store under development, but the team jumped on it and took basically what would have been 6 months worth of development work into 2 months, and we launched that last month and are seeing amazing traction there. So to me, that's the epitome of the omni-channel experience, right? That you shop on something on your phone, and then the same day or the next day you can walk into the store and get the product. That's going to be critical this holiday. Everything we're hearing is that shipping is already at holiday levels, and it's just going to get slower and more expensive. And so having the ability to continue to be able to pick up for free the product same day or next day is actually going to be a real advantage. We've also been doing a lot
in terms of store footprint. I think that convenience factor of being able to buy online, pick up in store is extremely valuable around holiday for sure, but especially as people are trying to do more and more of their day-to-day shopping, if they can, online as a result of sheltering at home. How many stores do the brands have? And I think that's important to maybe talk about, because it works well for you guys because you are so distributed across the country. And so is that part of some of the messaging that you've been bringing out, so that consumers know that there's one just around the corner, that it's easy to find a store near them?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jessica. So we have a store footprint across our brands of over 1,000 stores. For Men's Warehouse, we have 700 plus stores across the country, and we're in every major metro market. So literally there is a store just around the corner for almost everyone. And so, yeah, that is a huge advantage for us in that, we're not pure play online where we're totally reliant on the shipping and the shipping infrastructure to deliver products to our customers. And, menswear, like a lot of fashion, like there's still a real benefit to being able to go into a store, see the product in person, maybe do the research online beforehand and figure out what it is that you're looking for, but then go into the store, talk to our style experts who have been selling menswear for years and are just experts at knowing what it is that helps a guy look good and feel great, and help him put together an outfit for whatever moment he's looking to dial it up for.
Yeah, and so the buy online, pick up in store is something that got accelerated as a result of COVID. Are there things that are new and innovative around any of the brands also as a result? So something that you saw what was happening and figured out, specifically apparel and the retail industry was one of the categories most immediately impacted by the inability for people to go in store, touch and feel and shop. And so what are you guys doing as a company to, help consumers feel safe and comfortable and confident, going back to the stores, right? Because, I think Cynthia said this in the last panel, like we all thought this was going to be a few weeks and then things were going to spring back to normal. That's not exactly the case. And so, what is that new normal and what is that in-store experience that you guys are thinking about or bringing to life as a result of, where we are today?
Yeah, no, it's such a good call out. And obviously, like every customer relationship is built on trust. And, most important is that they can trust that they can be safe when they come to your store, right? So, and we're doing a number of sort of basic things that everybody's doing in terms of social distancing and, making sure that when someone tries on clothing, it sits for at least 24 hours to ensure that it's safe as well. Some of those fundamentals, but one of the things unique to menswear is obviously when you go to try on a suit or any kind of more fitted, tailored clothing, fit is really important, right? And the measurement is super important. And, there's always the classic picture of like the guy with the tape measure around his neck, and then he whips it off his neck and he reaches around behind the guy and measures his chest. Like that's just so not happening right now, So we actually partnered with, we piloted with two different companies, have settled on one, and we're now offering a touch-free measurement technology that enables a customer to walk into the store. We take photographs of the customer, and based on those photographs, really accurately can assess his measurements, and therefore the style experts are able to take that information and build an outfit that fits him perfectly because of those measurements. So one of those things that we had been talking about before, think it's kind of cool and wouldn't that be neat to do in our store, and it became evident that it was actually like mission critical to have something like that in our stores, and we were able to implement it within, again, a couple of months.
That's amazing. I've been to some conferences in the past and you see brands talking about how they're using augmented reality or AI to enhance the experience that they have with consumers. And sometimes it's just for fun.
Yeah.
And in your case, and for the brand and your customer, it is a requirement, and you're finding a way to enhance the experience, shorten the amount of touch points and time, and innovate with new technologies that are available as well. So that's really exciting. And so you mentioned something else when we were chatting prior about the tables, and so can you talk a little bit about that as well? I was going to try to explain what they were, but I realized like there's no way I'll give them any justice.
So we have just this week, actually, we announced that we've launched what we're calling our next gen store, which is we have a store that's outside of Houston, Texas, in Shenandoah, Texas. And this store is like it's the store of our future. Like we believe that very much it does all of the things we're talking about in terms of blending the online shopping experience and the offline shopping experience. It takes the best of what we know how to do in terms of serving our customers and guiding them through a menswear shopping experience, but also enables them, partly more relevant now with COVID, enables them to actually do some of that shopping themselves. And we have a number of really cool technology features in this store that are not just there because they're cool tech. They're there because we believe they truly enhance the experience. So one of them is a shirt wall that basically has all of the shirts, like available to the customer lined up. But rather than him having to totally dig through, we also have the ability for you to actually select on an interactive display, what's the right fit for you, what's the right size for you, is that product available in the store? If not, then you can order it online right there. The other thing that we have is these tables that have like an interactive display on the top of them. So you can bring over the product and lay it down, and then the table in conjunction with the style expert starts to help give you suggestions as to how to outfit that. So if you bring over a sport coat, it'll say like, here's some suggestions for shirts, here's some suggestions for like denim or other pants, and really helps the guy like figure out what would be the right sort of outfit to put together with that. So he can do that on his own. He can do that in conjunction with the style expert. So just pieces that like start to use technology that's available now in a way that truly enhances that overall experience. And so we're testing these things out in this next gen store. And then we will be taking elements of this as we learn what's working best for customers and bringing that to life across our entire fleet.
That's so cool. And I think if you think about, people who are doing research online and buying in store, or, in some categories, it's the opposite. It is that intersection of those two. And how do you provide that right mix of in-store interaction with the brand and the product, but ease of use and ability to get it brought to their home if you don't have it there, they don't have to go find another store or go back home, search for it online. So that's really exciting. And so when I think about Men's Warehouse, there's, buying these like 3-piece suits or renting tuxedos for these big moments and big events. Some of these events weren't happening as a result of COVID, or at least got postponed, happened in a slightly different way. How has that impacted the way that you think about being present and being part of those moments still with your customer? They may be happening in a slightly different way, but they're, how are you adapting both the way that you're communicating with these customers and getting them what they need?
Yeah. So our rental business is a huge part of our business. And actually, we have a pretty large share of the entire rental tuxedo market across the country. I tell people that I work with Men's Warehouse, and one of the first things they say is like, oh, I got my tuxedo for my wedding there, or I got my tuxedo for my prom there. Way for us to bring people into the brand as well. So critical part of our business to ensure that it stays relevant, even in these times where, certainly, unfortunately, many proms got canceled or postponed. Many weddings have been postponed or changed in some way. But we're finding is that a lot of them are still happening, and that's amazing. And, they may be happening in a very different way. Maybe that's smaller party. It's like a lot of it's virtual, whatever, but they are still happening. And so, certainly while our stores were closed, we needed to find a way to still continue to be able to fulfill on that commitment to our customers. So we actually enabled a fully end-to-end online experience for finding, renting, and returning your tuxedo. So we implemented one fun product that, again, started, this one I have to admit, started as it's just really fun tech, but it's actually super relevant now to the whole process. And we see it actually drives a tremendous amount of increase in our conversion rate, is that you can load up a photo of yourself and then literally try on rent that's available to rent or to buy in our formal wear section, and see what it looks like on you. So you can try out different colors. You can try out do you want the full 3-piece? Do you want just a really cool dinner jacket? And so I totally encourage you guys to go try that out. It's actually super fun. We did a team Zoom where everybody had to show up with the photo of them with the try on. But it's a great way for our customers to then see, what does it look like on me? They can rent it with more confidence. And then we ship the tuxedo directly to them. They go to their amazing event. And when they're done, they pack it back up in the box and send it right back to us. And they don't even ever have to walk in the store. So again, trying to just meet our customer where he is. And when our stores were closed, obviously that was important. But even now as they're open, it just saves a number of trips back and forth to the store as well. And just, again, makes it more convenient, which is one of the things that we're really laser focused on delivering for our customer.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I can't say, I knew this before chatting with you, is, I didn't realize how, I'll use the word last minute, tuxedo purchase or rentals are in the planning process for weddings, right? You think about the amount of time that you have to book your place or order your dress as
Totally.
the bride. And so there's that. And then if you mentioned prom, and so I obviously, Men's Warehouse, you think about men in
Yeah.
suits. Very quickly, your mind goes to the business professional or your father, someone older, in whatever generation that is. But prom, weddings, that's a much younger consumer, and I think these like fun technology, easier ways to do things than the way you thought your older brother or your father has done so is probably really important to the brand right now, both as you think about digital transformation and making e-commerce part of the mix. But can you talk a little bit more about the age of your target consumer? And so sort of surprised to hear you mention prom, but of course, like you need a tuxedo or a suit for your prom as well. And so, do you have different, is that a priority for the brand to, age down? Do you have two very clear and distinct different audiences that you market to differently?
Yeah, so not really in terms of marketing too differently, because we believe that some of our core insights about our customer are kind of universal truths for guys that, a lot of guys don't always know what it is that's going to make them look their best. And, even if they do, they sometimes want a little bit of support or suggestion on it. And so, that's something that we offer all of our customers. What we are doing though is making sure that we continue to stay relevant in the products and assortment that we offer those customers. And so, yeah, we're always looking to bring in new, younger customers into the brand, just, as a brand health thing, but also just because we believe that we've got that assortment. So we've got a brand called Paisley and Gray, which is like an amazing brand and actually like incredible styles and patterns and really bold prints and that kind of thing. And then we also just brought in recently alternative apparel, which is a very kind of eco-conscious, like very much leisure wear, like sweatsuits, like sweatpants, hoodies, that type of thing, which definitely is a new part to our assortment. And as we look to kind of like
totally acceptable business and wedding attire
totally.
these days.
Exactly. In fact, our fall shoot, we actually styled like a suit where the guy's wearing a hoodie with the suit jacket over top, suit pants and sneakers, and like that's a real look, and that it looks amazing, and it's actually something that we think is just so much more relevant for the way guys want to dress today, where they want to be casual. I mean, everyone's been wearing sweats and leggings and hoodies and all that now for like months, and we're all kind of maybe ready to just like dial it up a little, but we still want to be comfortable. And so, finding ways to make sure that our customers understand what's in our assortment and how our clothes are really made to feel comfortable, and different ways to style it is just kind of a fun part of it all.
Yeah, and so the new line that you were talking about, was that something that was in the works before COVID, and it's just really taken a more center stage now based on the fact that people have been dressing more casually and not needing to go out, and there's less of those moments or occasions where you feel required to, or you dress up because it gives you more confidence and sense of, like, okay, I'm ready, I'm going, I look good, I feel good. And so which came first?
Well, I mean, we've obviously, I think like alongside that, we're really known for tuxedos and formal wear. But, we do have a really broad assortment of casual, like business casual clothing. What we have been trying as part of this whole transformation that was pre-COVID was making sure that our customers knew what we had in our assortment that was more tied to more casual usage occasions. And certainly work itself is a more casual usage occasion now. So that was already very much in the works. I think, bringing on alternative apparel was a little bit in response to all the Zoom meetings and people sitting around their sweatpants and all that kind of stuff, but absolutely is 100% in line with our overall strategy to just make sure that we've always got a super relevant assortment for the way guys want to dress.
Okay, and so when you think about the way guys want to dress, how are you finding new customers or meeting customers when they're in that mindset or moment in their life where they need to have the tuxedo or the suit, whether it's to purchase or rent? I'll go back to, you mentioned prom again, and you just thinking about the younger consumer and the amount of time they spend on social media. Are you guys active on social? Are there platforms that skew younger, like TikTok, for instance, that are becoming more of a priority, whether it's from a test and learn perspective or really investing in to meet them where they are? You mentioned that earlier, meeting them where they are is so critical to the brand. Talk about social media and the different platforms and how, either for each of the brands or the business at large, you view that space.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, when I spoke earlier about us like modernizing our ways of working within the company, and marketing was a big part of that. The brand had traditionally been very much like sort of offline type of marketing, and TV is still a part of our mix and will probably be for a long time because it delivers incredible reach. But we also needed to like be much more active in our digital channels than we had been, just because that is where customers, almost every shopping journey begins online. And so we wanted to be there. Plus, it's also just like you say, where they are, right, and where they're spending an increasing amount of their time. And as we look for the younger consumer, it's also super critical. So one of the changes that we implemented, almost 2 years ago now, was actually really dialing up the paid social activity for the business. We had actually spent probably more time and effort and money on the organic side, and there wasn't like sort of the balance that needs to be there. Like organic and kind of all of that is so critical for bringing brand value and brand perceptions and really building customer relationships, but also trying to make sure that we're there in scale in front of the customer through paid social was part of the mix that was kind of missing. So we now have a very significant presence on Facebook and Instagram, and we are starting to sort of explore and experiment with some other platforms, whether it's a Pinterest or a TikTok, and actually through our partner with the Joseph Abood brand, who we have exclusive distribution for, we are actually trying out some stuff with TikTok to see what we can learn from that and figure out what makes sense for us as we think about next year.
Oh, that's great. I can imagine some really fun content coming out of that, like
we've already
guys in suits, like dancing.
And in fact, like we're actually looking at like how do we take some of the, like, just because TikTok is becoming such a pervasive part of culture and all that. And I was blown away by like, I actually had my daughter help me build a profile. Like, okay, let's pretend I'm a 25-year-old guy. Like, what would I be looking at? What would I be paying attention to? And there's so much that we can learn as a brand from what these amazing creators are doing and what like people are gravitating to. What I love about it too is that like there's absolutely this element of guys like wanting to dress up and wanting to like put that extra bit of polish on what they have to offer, and I think like like a recognition that clothes actually contribute to that and contribute to a guy feeling really great inside as much as it's about an outside thing. So I think there's such a cool undercurrent of stuff like that happening on TikTok that we can learn a ton from.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's, I think, happening in my living room. I'm not on TikTok. My kids are too young, but last week they got bored and they had a fashion show, and my 4-year-old put on like a collared shirt and a vest that he wore at my sister's wedding and a fedora, and he was just like wanting to like get fancy. Those are the words he used. But and so yeah, it's sort of for fun and for feeling good, and then for all the real like practical moments in life. And some of the platforms, I think you mentioned, it's interesting to say that you were testing on TikTok. What's interesting about the way that TikTok serves up content is, yes, you can like content and you can follow content creators, but they do a really good job serving up content based on things that you're consuming and engaging with. And so there's this interesting discovery element of it that's, I think, maybe into Pinterest than whoever I follow on Instagram is who I see content from. And so I'd imagine that you'll get some really good learnings, and we'll see some great results on TikTok, because that's where they're at. They're having fun, and who doesn't like getting dressed up every once in a while? And so putting those two together is really great.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we transition to questions, is there anything else that you'd like to share around retail, or making that seamless experience from online to in-store? I know this was a pretty broad topic for today around retail and commerce and CPG, and so leave it sort of open-ended. What else do you want people to know, or any lessons learned that you can share with the group?
Well, oh my God, lessons learned. holy cow, I don't know about everybody else, but like I have learned so much in the last, like, whatever it is now, 6-8 months. Like it's just been unbelievable. I would say one of the biggest learnings that we had is as you think about like your brand and positioning your brand during these times, and whether it was obviously all the concerns that people had around safety and all that related to COVID, of course, like all the like stuff that's been going on around racial injustice, and brands playing, fortunately now, a much more active role in taking a stand and like helping use their platforms to give a voice to people who have been treated unjustly, and I think, like, to me, that was one of the biggest learnings, is like what a responsibility brands have to actually like use their platform to help further important causes. And I think like one of the things that we've taken on, in addition to making very clear our company's position and stance on racial injustice and how we just will not tolerate inequality, is actually the importance of obviously what's coming next month or a month plus from now with the election, and how important it is for people to vote and to ensure that their voice is heard, because we're not going to get to a point of resolution on this until people's voice is heard. And so we have been supporting the efforts of vote.org. And just this week, we launched, in conjunction with National Voter Registration Day, we launched a campaign across our social platforms, through our email and our websites, to really raise awareness of the service that vote.org provides. So it enables people to get information on and how to quickly register. I mean, it's literally, you can do it on your phone in minutes. Like, it's the easiest thing. It gives people advice on just voting in general. It gives people information on where their polling location is. So kind of like a very apolitical resource for people to learn more about what they need to do to ensure that their voice is heard. So I think, like, just, the role that we can play, and that, we're encouraging partners and all that to also engage in, is just, helping use our platforms to raise awareness about causes like that.
And it's so important right now. And I love that the cause is to allow other people's voices to be heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just so important. Well, thanks for that. I do have a couple of questions before we run out of time. And so let's jump right in. So the first, many brands have drastically reduced media budgets over the past few months. How has your media plan over the past few months adjusted? Has it been reduced? Have you gotten more creative and efficient with your strategies? Is there anything around media that you can share with the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. I mean, again, this is part of our transformation, was just rebalancing our mix a little bit more and making sure that we really were in all the places where our customers are. TV, like I said, will continue to be a big part of it. We believe that it's critical to delivering the reach that we want to drive awareness and engagement with our brand. But we also, want to make sure that we're there throughout all parts of the funnel, and therefore our digital spend has significantly increased. The other thing that we've dialed up a little bit more across our brands is online video. And so, we all have like been binging on Netflix and Hulu and everything else. And so obviously not Netflix, but wanting to make sure that we've got presence on Hulu, making sure we've got presence on, streaming and sports programs, that type of thing as well. So that, we're still reaching that kind of TV audience, but, no matter what platform they're actually using to access it.
Okay, well, so maybe this is a follow-on to that question. How do you approach emerging media channels, and how do they factor into your overall strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question. And I think it's, we always have to be paying attention to, watch those. I wouldn't say our brands are like the cutting edge, like, we're going to be the first on some like random new platform. But we absolutely want to be aware of them and watch them, and then build a test plan. So a really ingrained discipline within our business now is around test and learn, and structuring, tests that help us really understand the impact of the things that we do. And so that continues to be something that we'll do as we go forward.
Okay, so I have a follow-on question to that. So we talked more about your brand and how you are present for the customer within some of these emerging channels or more established social platforms. Do you partner with key opinion leaders, celebrities, or influencers on any of these platforms to help broaden that reach and have that, from someone who's experienced the brand perspective?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say we've done as much recently on that. Like our goal first was to make sure we shored up the fundamentals and we had all the mechanics right and in place. And now we're absolutely at that point where we're ready to start like finding, the right and relevant ways to build content. And we've got some cool collaborations and partnerships in terms of products that we're bringing to market, and therefore like that will influence some of the marketing that we do. And then, again, like back to TikTok, but like one of the things that was really impressive with how they clearly learned from other platforms is like making available to advertisers like their content creator marketplace. So you can basically go in and, as a brand, you can go in and do your own thing, but you're going to get a lot more momentum and probably a little more credibility with the audience on your first few forays into the platform if you do it in conjunction with creators that already are known and have sort of a certain kind of following and style and approach. And this marketplace enables brands to kind of help find who would be the right fit for that as well. So I think there's, as a brand, like always trying to tell the story yourself is only going to get you so far. And I think you have a lot more kind of credibility and connection with the customer when you've got others advocating for you and kind of reinforcing the things that, you want to say, but they sometimes resonate a lot better. It's kind of like when I tell my kids something and they don't really pay attention and then they hear the same thing from somebody else and they're like, Mom, you wouldn't believe what so-and-so said. I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing.
Happens every day in this house. Okay, well, so one more question. And so you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about spending a little bit more on streaming media, but just maybe if we can expand beyond, alternative ways to reach TV type audiences. People are working from home. There's distant learning. It's altered the way people are consuming media and their digital habits.
Mhm.
So, what are you seeing when it comes to those types of behavioral changes, and how are they adapting things that you're doing from a marketing standpoint? And so is there anything else besides how you're investing in media that is shifting as a result of new consumer behaviors?
Yeah, I mean, I think the investment shift is probably the biggest in terms of just recognizing like where people are and how you're going to be in front of them at the right moment. But it's even kind of just recognizing like the influence that that's having on culture, and whether that's like how we shoot our next TV spot that is going to air on TV, but the look and feel of it may actually be something that would almost feel like you were seeing it on a digital channel, or if it's just like the way that we drive. I mean, certainly, I think where we can bring commerce into platforms, like we've been experimenting with our Joseph A. Bank brand on Instagram with stories and making sure that like we're actually making our stories shoppable, and helping get people to our website through Instagram in a way that, like lots of brands do, but we hadn't done before, right? So it's just, again, like, it may not be about like trying to get somebody to come just through a search ad. While that's still something that's super important to us, but like it may also be people, driving traffic through other platforms where we know people are spending a ton of time.
Yeah. It's so important. I think that's part of it. It's like measuring, optimizing, repeating. It's how do you make those incremental changes that have positive impact for the business. And so, I know you made a comment like, yeah, maybe it's common knowledge for many marketers or brands to include that swipe up when you're doing things on Instagram. But it still isn't happening 100% across the board. And so then from there, where do you go next? How do you look at the data and insights to say, okay, well, is it when we put the more commercial message in the first frame or the third frame, or, is it the second time we post, not the first time? Lots of these things that you can get smarter and smarter with, as you do more. And I think that's really important for brands to put into perspective, that it's not an immediate fix, and that you have to adapt and just be agile with how you're thinking about these platforms. And they're making it easier and easier for brands to test and learn and do things in low risk ways, and then also make it really easy to spend a lot of money and dial up your media investments too, right? And so it's this like progression that I think is so important. And I think that's a good way to maybe wrap up the conversation, and the day and the time that everyone spent with brand innovators. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for closing out such an amazing day on e-commerce, CPG, and retail. 3 really big important areas of the business that we're all in. I'm happy to have got to know you and a little bit more about your business, and then hearing from the
Likewise.
other great speakers as well. And so thanks a lot. It was great to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. And so, want to also personally thank everyone for spending the longer duration of time with Brand Innovators and getting to learn a little bit more about Gen Video and how we view the future of influencer marketing as well. We hope you all will join us again for our next Brand Innovators livecast, which is Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern on music, audio, and podcasts. We have senior marketers from Anheuser-Busch, Republic Records, iHeartMedia, Salesforce, Amazon Music, American Express, Headspace, and many more. Wow, that was a mouthful. Lots of awesome brands and companies. But all right, well, thank you for joining everyone, and we